All right, you guys win. Despite me working my absolute butt off and buying 16 graphics cards over the last 3 months, which I'll admit is still really tough to do, today we are finally looking at a pre-built on my channel and talking about why it's probably just time to buy one. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome to Zach's Tech Turf. So yeah, as you guys know, I'm not typically the guy that reviews pre-built gaming PCs on my channel. I've actually always been a fan of them and recommend them a lot to a certain type of gamer, but I generally prefer building them myself, so that's why I do that here on YouTube. Because of the current GPU market, which we do not need to elaborate on, there's literally never been a better time since I've been alive to just simply buy a pre-built like this one today. Corsair was kind enough to send this one out, which is obviously obnoxiously baller, but before getting into this one specifically, I want to just talk about pre-built in general, no matter what your budget is. If you take a look at the comment section of my videos or watch my Twitch live streams, twitch.tv/ZachsTechTurf by the way, you'll see all over the place that I do indeed recommend pre-builts to certain individuals. If you're someone that's jumping over from the world of console gaming and want to start playing PC right away with your friends, you're a perfect candidate. Also, maybe you're just a super busy adult like myself, where you have a demanding job, a family to take care of, etc., and you just simply don't have the time to learn all of the ins and outs of not only building a gaming PC, but figuring out every single part of the build. I can definitely resonate with that one. I consider myself a pretty busy adult as well, and that's why I decided to partner today with Audible. Audible works really well for us busy people who don't have the time to sit down and read a book, but it still allows us to listen to the books while we're doing other things such as walking the dogs, mowing the lawn, or probably what I'm doing right now while you're watching this video, recording some more YouTube content. I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I've personally read over 70 books in just the last 3 years, most of them being listening straight on Audible, and I just wrapped up one of my new favorites, which is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. Creativity Inc. goes into all the specifics and little details about how the Pixar organization created the ultimate creativity environment for the employees, and it even gave me some ideas on how to implement it for my own small little business here at ZTT. It was also really cool to see how big of a role Steve Jobs played at Pixar, which I was actually pretty unfamiliar with, and I definitely recommend literally anybody on the planet to give this one a try. Good thing Audible is hooking you guys up with a free month and a free book. All you gotta do is go to audible.com/CTT, or you can even text CTT to 500-500. Links are down in the description. And once again, big thank you to Audible for sponsoring today's video. All right, so getting back to these pre-builts, let's first talk about the main advantages to see if buying a pre-built is right for you. The first one is obvious. You don't need to assemble or figure out exactly what parts to pick for your gaming PC, which means you can jump straight into the gaming action right away. Take this Corsair i7200 here. Corsair specifically combined these parts with perfect balance, and you can trust that they'll do the same for pretty much any of their other pre-built models as well. This one specifically is rocking the latest 8-core and 16-threaded Intel i7-11700K CPU, which is cooled by the H100i RGB Pro XT. It has 32 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance RGB RAM, an MSI Z490A Pro, a 1TB Corsair MP400 NVMe drive, an RTX 3080 Founders Edition, and that's all inside the Corsair 4000D Airflow case. That's obviously an obnoxiously baller pre-built here, but the concept still stays the same no matter if you're buying a baller one like this one all the way down to the budget ones. You don't need to waste time trying to figure out which part goes with what. It's already done for you. The other advantage I really advocate for when buying a pre-built, especially from a trusted brand like Corsair, is that they take care of all the little details that you might have missed when building your first gaming PC, or if you're just too lazy, which even affects someone like me. Things like cable managing the front with zip ties around the AIO tubes to make them look cleaner, and zip tying the GPU power connectors and 12-pin adapters so it looks minimal are great examples of this concept. On the computer itself, they also enabled XMP to 3200 MHz right out of the box. They installed a PCIe Wi-Fi card so you don't have to buy one of those cheap USB ones. The PC came installed with an updated version of Windows 10, and they even installed all the drivers and necessary software that you need to get up in gaming quickly. On this Corsair i7200 specifically, they of course included their iQ software, which controls all the RGBs. I wasn't a fan of the pre-installed color, so of course I had to change that up a bit to my personal taste. They also installed a Corsair diagnostic software, which is a branded version of PC Doctor, and this is actually a pretty good setup to show people that are new to PC gaming exactly how to keep their hardware running in tip-top shape. It shows you if you have a Windows update pending, how you should create a system backup, and even displays all of the specs inside your build. Finally, they also installed a help guide right on the desktop so you don't lose it. This is just a data sheet that shows you exactly what email addresses and phone numbers you need if you ever have an issue with the PC and need some help with troubleshooting or a warranty claim. And speaking of which, that's exactly what the next advantage is: warranties and troubleshooting. If you're building your own PC, you're at the mercy of troubleshooting the PC down to yourself, so maybe you don't have the skills for that. And for warranties, instead of the warranty being on each individual component. With a pre-built, you just have one warranty to cover the entire thing. Most beginner PC gamers don't actually know how to troubleshoot down to an individual component effectively to take advantage of a warranty. Just ask Karsten in our ZTT Discord server. With this, if you have a problem at all with your PC, just call Corsair up or whoever you bought your pre-built from. It's way easier. Now, if you are thinking about taking advantage of a pre-built, you're definitely going to have to trust the company that you're buying from. And to be honest, I really won't rely on a lot of the more budget companies, as they aren't going to give you quite the same service that a company like Corsair will. Here you can see the unboxing experience of my pre-built was super guided. Right on the packaging itself, it shows you exactly how to unbox the thing properly instead of just ripping it straight out. Inside the build, there was also some Instapack foam that protects all the internals from shipping, which is especially needed for a big and bulky RTX 3080 Founders Edition. And like I already mentioned, having all that software pre-installed and ready for you is a huge bonus. However, I did think it was pretty amusing that the techs that built this PC didn't bother to clean out the downloads folder or clear their internet search history. Instead of finding something juicy though, I can simply see in their search history that they went to an LO4D website, which has 37 different pieces of PC benchmarking software, and I can see in the recycling bid that they had stress testing software installed such as Furmark, Prime 95, etc. This is actually a good thing because that means they stress tested my system before sending it out, meaning that they pushed these components to the absolute max, giving me the comfort that these are ready to go. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up my thoughts on buying a pre-built gaming PC. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of the concept when a company like Corsair does it right, but now I want to get into the specific performance of this pre-built and throw some games at this system. I'm also supposed to throw some DLSS and RTX titles at this system. DLSS is nothing new to me, as I recommend anybody with an RTX graphics card turn that on, but I actually haven't used RTX in quite some time now, and since I heard that Fortnite got some ray tracing, let's see if we can land some headshots with RTX turned on. Before jumping into the RTX on section, here I first tested Fortnite in 1440p Pro settings with RTX off, DLSS is on and set to quality, and I got a very solid FPS average of 296, completely overkill for this 1440p 144Hz monitor that I'm testing with. I've actually never tried Fortnite with RTX on at this point, and when I did, I actually only managed to get 83 FPS, which is definitely a big drop in performance. I don't think anyone's gonna make the argument that you should turn on RTX for a competitive title like Fortnite. Things like DLSS and Nvidia Reflex are obviously no-brainers that you should definitely turn on, but even so, I still want to turn on RTX for Fortnite and see how many headshots we can rack up.
First RTX kill, let's go, baby. Sit down, son. Wait, headshots do significant damage? Aim for the head? I didn't know that!
Hopefully you enjoyed that little montage. As you can see, the performance of Fortnite really varies from location to location, so that initial 83 FPS with RTX turned on doesn't paint the full picture. I did actually enjoy playing Fortnite with higher visual quality than I normally do, but either way, if you're trying to take a competitive shooter seriously, you should always drop the settings down to low, except for things like visual distance. We gotta move on to the rest of these titles though, so next up I fired up Outriders, which is definitely a game that I can get behind with an RTX graphics card. First up, I tested in 1440p Ultra settings with DLSS DLSS turned off, and I got a solid 114 FPS. Keep an eye for that super low 1% low though. This is where DLSS comes in super clutch though, because with the same settings but with DLSS set on to quality, those numbers got a huge increase as the average FPS went up to 148 and the 1% low jumped up as well. This game truly shows the power of DLSS. Not only does the game perform much better with the average FPS and 1% low, but the game even looks better, and this should be a no-brainer setting that you turn on for a title like this. Also, just as a quick note, keep in mind that the footage that you're currently seeing is way less beautiful than what I'm seeing here on my monitor. After the compression from my capture card, rendering the video in Adobe Premiere, and then YouTube's compression, this footage looks so much worse. Please just know that these games look so good when you're actually sitting right in front of them. After that, I tested out World of Warcraft. I'm completely addicted to playing this and WoW Classic lately, by the way, and first up in 1440p with max settings and RTX off, I got 184 FPS when walking around the main city in Shadowlands. After turning RTX on, that dropped a bit down to 138 FPS, which is still obviously perfectly fine. The only RTX setting in WoW is Ray Trace Shadows, which isn't a whole lot. There's definitely a much sharper and higher quality shadow on the player character with them turned on, so I personally recommend taking advantage of it. And for the last RTX title, we have Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. First up in 1440p Ultra settings with DLSS turned on and RTX turned off, I got 161 FPS during a multiplayer match. I then turned on RTX and the FPS got down to 104, but this really depends on what map you're on and the performance will certainly vary. On this map specifically, there aren't too many places where the RTX seems to really be working. Here you can see the reflections in this puddle look absolutely beautiful, so that's one example. Shout out to the guy who tried to kill me while filming this, by the way, but ended up getting headshot. But yeah, like I said earlier, it's up to you if you want to see these baller graphics at the expense of lower FPS during a competitive title like this one. Next up, I wanted to run some canned benchmarks just so you can compare this data to your own PC or a different pre-built that you're thinking about buying. We'll run through these super quickly. First up, we have 3D Mark's Port Royal, and this i7200 gaming PC cranked out a massive score of 11,028, and these ray trace reflections look stunning during this benchmarking run. Here you can also see in the upper left-hand corner that our RTX 3080 Founders Edition didn't break a sweat as it stayed in the low 70s the entire time. For another 3D Mark benchmark, I fired up Time Spy. Usually my budget and mid-range builds get anywhere from 3,000 to 7,000 on this one for reference, but this monster build cranked out an obnoxious score of 15,529. After that was Rainbow Six Siege, still using our canned benchmarks like I said, and in 1440p Ultra settings, this game was no match for this build as I got an average FPS of 313. Assassin's Creed Valhalla's benchmarking tool came up next. Usually this one leaves my builds begging for mercy, but still here, even in 1440p Ultra settings, we got over that target 60 FPS mark with 68. And finally, just so you know how it performs on a title that probably a lot of you are playing, with Valorant in 1440p max settings, I had zero trouble landing all of the headshots, as you can see, as I got an average FPS of 234. Also, when gaming, I never saw the RTX 3080 get above 75 degrees Celsius, which is fantastic, and the CPU usually stayed around 55 degrees, but that's mostly because we were relying more on the GPU for these titles. The PC also stayed super quiet during my entire testing, really great temperatures and acoustics, especially for this powerful of a system. Big thanks to Corsair for sending this one out so I have an excuse to talk about why buying pre-builts are a pretty good idea right now. Links to everything I talk about are down in the description. Feel free to click the video that's on the screen now if you want to see my own build compared to this one, but just like always, I hope you enjoyed this video.